Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something truly monumental, the massive challenge of shaping a modern society totally from scratch. I mean, think about it. When a newly independent nation is born, how do you actually build it? Do you rely on grand, sweeping philosophies, strict, pragmatic administrative order, or maybe just pure boots-on-the-ground human empathy? Well, we are going to explore exactly that by looking at three totally distinct figures who tackled the foundation of modern India from completely different angles. We're talking about Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Mother Teresa.
Okay, really quickly, here is our roadmap. First, Nehru, the rational architect. Then Patel, the pragmatic unifier. Next, Teresa's selfless compassion, before we finally explore their enduring societal impact.
So let's jump right into part one. Jawaharlal Nehru, the rational architect. Stepping into the role of independent India's very first prime minister, Nehru wasn't just managing a country, he was basically drafting the entire blueprint for its future. His core vision? Democratic socialism. Rather than some kind of violent revolution, he envisioned this irreversible shift of wealth directly to the workers, achieved entirely through democratic means. He firmly believed the economy had to serve the whole community, not just a privileged few at the top.
He actually said, there cannot be a true democracy without true socialism, and there cannot be true socialism without true democracy. It's such a powerful quote, right? Because it captures his integrated worldview perfectly. Nehru prized political freedoms, speech, expression, but he argued they were essentially meaningless if people were starving in the streets. To him, true democracy and true socialism were completely locked together. You simply couldn't have one without the other.
But Nehru wasn't just focused on economics. He was a hardcore rationalist. Imagine, just for a second, trying to enforce a purely scientific temperament in a nation literally steeped in millennia of complex religious traditions. That was his goal. He prioritized the life we are living right now over the afterlife, aggressively fighting against superstition. He strongly argued that a modern functioning society required a uniform civil code, not a patchwork of different laws for different communities.
Now, we all know someone who's a fantastic idea person, right? And then there's the person who actually rolls up their sleeves and executes. A nation absolutely needs both. On one hand, we have Nehru's highly theoretical, scientific secularism and democratic socialism. But a society needs more than just a philosophical architect to function. It needs someone to actually lay the bricks. And that perfectly contrasts with our next figure, whose approach was a heavily hands-on administrative pragmatism, a synthesis of liberalism, conservatism, and welfarism.
Which brings us to part two. Vallabhbhai Patel, the pragmatic unifier.
If Nehru was the philosopher in the clouds, Patel, who was known as the Iron Man, was the mechanic on the ground, taking on the incredibly sensitive home and states portfolios during the absolute chaos of partition. His pragmatic statecraft was staggering. I mean, he physically assembled the nation. He restructured the bureaucracy, integrated all those independent princely states, and laid the hard foundation of the Constitution. And interestingly, unlike Nehru's sweeping push for socialism, Patel was way more guarded. He insisted on really careful regulations for land reforms to maintain economic stability.
He described his vision for the state as being democratic in structure, nationalistic in foundation, and welfarist in spirit and function. That right there distills his entire worldview. Yes, he fiercely championed individual liberty, but it had to operate strictly within the bounds of the Constitution. For Patel, the glue holding the country together wasn't some abstract economic theory. It was profound patriotism and the strict rule of law, ensuring that freedom actually worked for everyone.
Moving on to part 3, Mother Teresa and selfless humanitarian compassion.
Okay, so we've looked at the grand ideological blueprint and the pragmatic statecraft. Now we take a sharp pivot from the halls of government right down to the dirt streets. Mother Teresa's approach bypassed legislation entirely. Driven by radical faith, she actually took an extra vow to give wholehearted, free service to the poorest of the poor. Her philosophy was startlingly simple compared to complex constitutional law. Absolutely everyone deserves to feel wanted and loved. No one gets left behind.
Just look at the sheer rapid momentum of her impact here. It started in 1950 with just 12 members. 12! But the trajectory is staggering. Within 2 years, she opened the Kalagat Hospice, and remarkably, she used an abandoned Hindu temple for this, specifically so people could die with dignity in their own faith. Within just 15 years, her grassroots movement was so undeniable that the Pope officially approved a massive global expansion. And this compassion? It was intensely practical.
During a time of immense public panic over contagious diseases like leprosy, she didn't sit around waiting for government health policies, she just acted. By setting up a leprosy fund and rolling out mobile clinics to bring medicine directly to the infected, she fought not just the physical disease, but the severe social stigma and the terrifying isolation that came with it.
So, this brings us to a really fascinating intersection. We have just explored three totally unique perspectives: the sweeping, rational reforms of a democratic socialist, the strict, constitutional statecraft of a pragmatic administrator, and the boots-on-the-ground, unconditional love of a selfless humanitarian. So how do these incredibly diverse pillars actually complement one another to build a functioning society?
Let's wrap this up with part 4, their enduring societal impact.
When you put it all together, it's like a giant puzzle where these three distinct frameworks act as vital, complementary models. A society absolutely requires a Nehru, the rational architect, to design the big overarching system. It needs a Patel, the pragmatic unifier, to actually enforce the rights and build the hard infrastructure. And inevitably, for sure, it needs the humanitarian heart of someone like Teresa to catch and nurture those who fall through the cracks of both the ideology and the bureaucracy.
As we finish up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. When you look at the major challenges facing our world right now today, which of these approaches do you think we need the most? Do we lack the bold, rational ideology of a Nehru? Do we desperately need the stabilizing, pragmatic administration of a Patel? Or are we most in need of the unconditional, selfless compassion of a Mother Teresa? The builders of modern India show us that a society likely needs all three to truly thrive. But the balance? Well, that's up to us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.